Greetings and salutations. This is JJ Brost with the National Weather Service in Tucson, Arizona. Today is Wednesday, March 5th, 2014. Most of our weather briefings focus on weather that is expected in the future. This presentation will focus on the past, specifically the rain and snow that fell across Arizona on March 1st through the 3rd. That makes forecasting much easier, by the way. Actually, my goal is to try and convince you that the weather forecasts we produce are very good and getting better. In other words, I want to earn your trust. The decisions you make based on weather forecasts may very well save your life someday. Let's start by going back to Wednesday, February 26th. During the morning of the 26th, National Weather Service forecasters produced this graphical forecast showing precipitation amounts for the weekend rain event. We felt most confident that the heaviest rainfall would occur across the central portion of the state. We even suggested rainfall amounts in excess of 3 inches were possible, mainly around Gila County. Now here is our best estimate, based on satellite information, on the actual precipitation amounts across most of the state. I apologize for the subtle color changes. Try not to get wrapped up in a particular point, and instead look at the big picture. Notice the general patterns are very similar. The lighter rainfall amounts, or the blue colors, generally fell in the western and southeast portion of the state. Now focus on the heavier precipitation amounts, or the darker green and yellow colors, which correspond to the greater impacts, such as flooding or heavy snow. Notice our forecast highlighted these areas of heavy precipitation pretty well. Now you may be wondering about the forecasted orange areas and think, wow, they went a little too high with the rainfall amounts in a few areas. Well, it turns out the satellite estimates don't always pick up the more localized heavy rain. So I took the liberty and plotted 3 points on these maps to show you where we had actual observations of 3 to 4 inches of rain. These were measured by rain gauges and were the 3 of the highest rain totals we had across the state. Not bad for a forecast that was made 3 to 4 days before the first drop of rain fell from the sky. I also want to quickly give credit to the Weather Prediction Center, who forecast precipitation amounts across the entire United States up to 7 days in the future. They are part of the National Weather Service, and they provide guidance to local offices such as us here in Tucson. The colors are again slightly different, so please pay attention to the legend. The amounts may have been off by a little, but the overall pattern was pretty good. The highest rainfall totals were focused on central Arizona, with lesser amounts in the southwest and southeast portions of the state. So 6 to 7 days before the first drop of rain fell, the Weather Prediction Center suggested precipitation amounts in excess of 2 inches in the central portion of Arizona, with widespread rainfall in excess of 1/4 of an inch. That's really impressive. Okay, so why am I telling you this? Do I want a cookie or a pat on the back for doing my job? No, of course not. Certainly we appreciate feedback, but my intent is to convince you that the forecasts are very good these days. You might think that we just got lucky with the weekend rainfall, but the reality is our good, accurate forecasts far outnumber our bad forecasts. The accurate forecast we made for this past weekend is the new normal. Now, of course, we still make some mistakes, and the further you go out in time, our accuracy will suffer a bit. But we are constantly improving. In fact, we are improving at an incredible rate, thanks in part to our better understanding of the science of meteorology, but also because of the rapid evolution of technology. I'd like to try and prove that to you by showing you our forecast accuracy as it relates to hurricane tracks. Keep in mind that forecasting the track of a hurricane is one of the most difficult tasks in meteorology. We've seen similar rates of improvement in our forecast accuracy across other weather types like rain, temperatures, winds, and humidity. So this hurricane track information is fairly representative of our entire forecast. This chart shows the accuracy of hurricane track forecasts by decade. The track, by the way, is where the eye of the hurricane goes. Now, of course, the impacts from a hurricane, like heavy rain, strong winds, and storm surge, extend well away from the eye, in some cases hundreds of miles. Each line here represents the average forecast track error by decade. So the blue line shows the track error for the 1970s. The green line is the 80s, the yellow line is the 90s, the red line is 2000 to 2009, and the purple line on the bottom shows 2010 through 2012. The y-axis shows the error in nautical miles, which are pretty close to regular miles. Obviously, we want these numbers to be very low because that means the forecast error was low. A value of 0 would mean a perfect forecast. The x-axis shows the forecast period expressed in hours. In other words, I am showing you how good our forecast was at 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, all the way up to 5 days. Now, focus your attention on the purple line and the day 5 forecast. Right now in 2014, 5 days in advance, we produce a hurricane forecast that has an average track error of about 200 nautical miles. Now that may seem high, but I want to put that number into context. If you look at 2000 through 2009, our forecast track error hit 200 nautical miles at 96 hours or 4 days. In the 90s, we hit the 200 nautical mile mark at about 62 hours or roughly 2.5 days. In the 80s and 70s, our 40 to 42 hour forecast, or roughly 1.5 days, had an error of 200 nautical miles. Here's the screaming message I'm trying to communicate. Currently, our forecast 5 days into the future is just as good as our forecast was 1.5 days in the future in the 1970s and 1980s. It's just as good as the forecast at 2.5 days in the future from the 1990s, and just as good as the day 4 forecast from the early 2000s. We've tripled the lead time you have to make a life-saving decision in just 3 decades. And in just the past few years, we've increased that lead time by a full day. I could have posted temperature, rainfall, or wind speed accuracy information with nearly the same basic conclusion. Simply put, our 5 to 7 day forecasts right now are as good as the 2 to 3 day forecasts were in the 80s and in some cases the 90s. The manner in which humans make a decision, especially based on forecast information, is highly complex. Simply providing a more accurate forecast does not solve all of our problems. However, it is an important step in building trust with you. I would need to conduct a much longer presentation to detail just a few of the factors that cause a human to make a decision. That's a presentation for another day. For now, I simply want to ask that you consider increasing your trust in the weather forecast. I'm asking you to look at a rainfall forecast, such as this one, and say to yourself, that's likely going to be very close to reality, as opposed to, the weather forecasts are always wrong. I guarantee your future self will thank you when you make that good, possibly life-saving decision based on the weather forecast. One last thing, please let me know if you have a question about weather, forecasting, or risk communication. I'd be happy to try and answer your questions with a presentation like this. And let me know if you like these kinds of presentations or if you just want me to stick to the forecast. That's all I have for today. Please visit our website or find us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube for your weather information.